Oregon's offense looks unstoppable. They've been humming along. Can't say the same thing for Penn State.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is right. It is a Locked On crossover to talk Penn State and Oregon football with this matchup looming. It's going to be a top 5 matchup. Thank you so much for making this crossover episode your first listen and watch of the day. My name is Zach Sako, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. He is Brian Smith, co-hosting the show as well, recruiting expert, college football expert in general. As we are going to have a recruiting conversation as there are strong implications for a win or a loss on either side, how this will affect recruiting for Penn State and Oregon. But we're going to break down the matchup, go in depth, and talk about Penn State's offensive woes. Brian's going to give his take on how Penn State might be able to fix them going up into this game. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Friendly reminder to let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Brian, I've given a lot of rants about Penn State's offense now and how, I could reason with it, I could understand it, but FCS Villanova is kind of where I have to draw the line here. You didn't fix the mistakes. The same things lingered from the previous week before, and now you go into the bye week, which is great. You get 2 weeks to prepare for Oregon, but at the same time, you kind of go into this timeout ice cold in a sense if you're Penn State's offense. So how concerned are you? Because a lot of Penn State fans are very concerned given what Oregon has shown us.
I would be at a very high alert. I've got a bunch of stats in front of me that I'll read a few of them at least in regards to passing plays where the ball travels 20 or more yards before somebody makes contact with it. Like, how many passes do you think Drew has completed where he threw it at least 20 yards so far?
I'd say maybe 2, maybe 3.
2. He's 2 for 8 for 25%, 73 yards, 9.1 per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Let me be very clear. That wouldn't be in the 20 percentile.
No.
And they're playing a horrible competition.
That's what amplifies this. Yes.
Yeah. So when you look at it like this, like Joey Aguilar isn't supposed to be the passer that Drew is, and I don't think he is, to be honest, but they just played Georgia, and for the season, Joey is 9 out of 13, 69.2%, 368 yards, 28.3 yards per attempt, 7 touchdowns, and 1 interception. This is a guy they took after spring practice who'd never played with these guys before.
I know.
At some point, there's a disconnect here. Like, I know Penn State, and I understand that your coaching staff's going to lie about this, but they're not showing anything because they play Oregon. That's their first real game. I get it.
Yep.
But you're averaging 9.1 yards per attempt. You're not throwing the ball down the field very effectively. You've got real receivers now. Pena is one of the better slot receivers in college football, conservatively top 10. You've got 2 NFL running backs, and probably half your line at least is going to play in the NFL, and yet your passing game is still pedestrian. Why? So I would be very, very concerned if I was Penn State. Right now, I think if I had to pick, I'd pick Oregon to win the game. Earlier before this season, I said, Oregon will probably win. That's tough place to play, blah, blah, blah. They're better. And it's because of their passing game. It doesn't make any sense, but I'm sure you've watched Oregon.
Yep.
That offense is dynamic, and they got multiple good running backs, etc. They got everything. Sadiq, the tight end's a freak. Why would you pick against them? Now, of course, I know it's in Happy Valley and all that, but on a neutral field, would you pick Penn State to beat Oregon right now, Zach?
Funny enough, it's like you've been listening a lot to my shows and my reactions recently because I said I brought in, again, I think we'll hash this out here too. Should Penn State even be favored if this was a neutral site game? Because I go through the reasonings. Hey, they got home field advantage. They're going to have the whiteout crowd. It's a cross country trip. I'm not even pointing to the matchups or the X's and O's to say why Penn State should be favored. It is strictly the environment. That's a concern.
Yeah, if it wasn't for, Penn State arguably has the biggest home field advantage in college football. It's certainly up there. But Dante's not a guy that I think will get super rattled by it. He's a pretty smooth customer.
No, he's not like a true freshman or anything anymore. He's a third-year quarterback, but he went through that, right? That's the thing. This is not your typical first-year starter at Oregon. He went through that gauntlet with UCLA, right? And we're on the heels of UCLA again, once again, totally combusting here because they fired Deshaun Foster, right? But Dante Moore goes through that adversity with UCLA, then gets to sit behind Dylan Gabriel. So this is just not, oh, he's the new quarterback, right? You should be able to rattle him easily. No, not at all. He's closer to a fifth-year veteran than he is a born-again first-year starter, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that he'll make key plays. So my question to you is this. Will Penn State hit – I know they're going to be able to run the ball to a certain degree, but if Oregon decides, you know what, screw you guys, we're just going to put the extra defender in the box, we're going to play some serious defense outside, and we're going to force you to run against a really heavy box. Even your talent is going to have a struggle. Are they going to be able to throw it past 10 yards?
I think that's the hope, is that the ground game will offset, right? It's something I said all preseason too, and over the off season as well, is that Penn State's the fix to all of this, and add a wrinkle to this if you will, Brian. But it's the balance of it. It's not that, Penn State is so great in this one area. It's the fact that they should be able to complement every part of the offense. And I look at Andy Kotelnicki's plays that he is calling against these inferior opponents. They are complex plays. It's not just inside zone, we're going to bully you and push you back off the line of scrimmage. It's not just that. Outside zones, misdirection, different plays that aren't necessarily routine from what we saw a season ago, but as it should be, because this offense isn't the Tyler Warren show anymore. It has to be a lot more balanced. So the balance is the key. Being able to go to Pena or Ross or Kyron Hudson and then run the football with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, you should be able to rely on Drew, right? I say you should. So it's kind of that he becomes the common denominator here with how inconsistent he has been to this point as a fourth-year quarterback.
Yeah, because you brought in the receivers for the most part. I mean, they got some key guys back.
Three new starters that are all upgrades across the board. Every single wide receiver position is better.
And now it's still a concern. So Tyler was, by the way, he's a special player. Good luck to him in the NFL. But I don't think that if you're a Penn State fan, you should be happy about this. And for once, I'm just going to say it, Drew's got to make better throws. I didn't watch much of the Villanova game, no offense to them, but I have no interest in watching them against Penn State. But the little bit that I watched, a few of the throws from Drew just weren't very good. I don't know if it's a timing issue. I don't know if the route was wrong. I don't know if the read after the snap was wrong by the receiver. But there's a disconnect on some of the throws. Even the ones he completed, it didn't look effortless. It didn't look comfortable. And the guys were wide freaking open. So I don't know if you can fix that in 2 weeks. And then you're going to add in, you're not going to have a clean pocket against Oregon all day. They got guys up front. So why would I bet on that? I'm a see it guy, feel it guy, see it again. You got to prove it to me. I don't feel comfortable with their offense, and I'm very surprised that I'm saying that right now because it's not a talent issue.
Well, let's continue to get to the bottom of it because you mentioned the missed reads, some execution. Is it all on Drew? And how can Penn State offset some of those key matchups that are really going to dictate this game? Well, that is coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day. But on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football now back, Prize Picks is the simplest and the fastest way to get in on the action. Just simply pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. So you can make your predictions over on Prize Picks. Do you think Josh Allen will have more or less than 270 passing yards, for example? Or do you think Saquon Barkley will have more or less than a rushing touchdown? The best part, even if one of your picks misses, Prize Picks invented the flex play, so you can still double your money. That's right. If you have one pick that is incorrect, you'll be able to help yourself out with the Prize Picks Flex Play. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Drew Allar is going to bear a lot of responsibility, being that he is the quarterback. He is after the center. He is the first guy to start with the football. Of course, we can bring in James Franklin into this equation as well, because it always is going to fall back on coaching, because something is not right when you have a fourth-year quarterback, just the core of your team, the nucleus of your offense. Brian, this would be a different conversation if it was the defense. Hey, Jim knows the system. It is really complicated. You're going to see some growing pains, right? And it's on the offense with Andy Kotelnicki back. That continuity, that consistency, stuff that I hyped up all off season long, and that's not there. It's there with the defense, but not with the offense. So when it comes to the offense, it is truly a mix of everything outside of play calling. I think Andy Kotelnicki has been phenomenal when it comes to play calling. Maybe he's throwing a little bit too much, because you're not going to throw. And when I say this, you don't throw the kitchen sink at Villanova or FIU or Nevada. Penn State, if they wanted to put, I would like to be able to say this more confidently, but if Penn State wanted to, they could put up 70 points against FIU if they really put pedal to the metal type of stuff. But you know that, hey, we have bigger fish to fry with Oregon and eventually Ohio State, and obviously a Big Ten slate to be aware of too. But it is a little bit of everything. Drew Allar is missing wide open wide receivers. The pass catchers, while they have been good, they've shown better promise than what Penn State has had over the past 2 years. They have dropped some key passes. They have not run the best routes. The running backs, and Katron Allen's been phenomenal. Nicholas Singleton, not sure. It feels like he's taken a step back. Different running backs coach. He's working through some things, so I'll give him a little bit of a grace period, but figure that out sooner rather than later. Singleton, to an extent, is trying to adjust his game. Not reinvent himself, but make some changes that are you have to take a step back to go forward. Okay? And then the offensive line is where I'm really kind of curious as to why they are having any issues, because that group is they all have starting experience. They're all starters from a season ago. The only change is Anthony Donko moves inside from right tackle to right guard. I can understand a little bit of an adjustment period, and I guess that's what these 3 non-conference games are. The bye week is so valuable for Penn State, but to lay it all out for especially Oregon fans in the show that might be tuning in, it is truly a mix of everything, where somebody is kind of messing up their part on any given play.
Yeah, and I don't know if playing 3 subpar opponents to start out your season for Penn State is part of that. It's hard to motivate college kids because the kids look at the helmets they're playing against. That's usually how they practice, and it drives coaches nuts, but it's just true.
Yeah.
Penn State's players won't be any different. But even if they amped it up against Oregon, you still missed reps against Villanova and FIU and all these other teams. You could have got better too, so that's frustrating. Mm-hmm. So my question is, can you really turn it up that much, even with the crazy whiteout and all that? My thing for fixing it, they got to execute better in practice the next 2 weeks, and they're going to have to use the full playbook. They need at least a couple of schemed up, has nothing to do with talent plays. And I know that's not fair to Kotelnicki, but he's going to have to scheme some up because they're not getting it done. And the coaches hate that, but you're making millions of dollars. Figure it out. He's going to take a big chunk of hate mail if they don't, because Penn State fans are tired of losing to the upper echelon teams. But if they don't win against Oregon at home, it's going to be apoplectic. It'll be bad. They have to find a way to scheme up, because they're not going to hold Oregon to like 20 points. I do some of these.
No. This is, you don't really get that choice, because my initial take on this, and again, as we go through it, Oregon's going to play Oregon State, right? I know we're still a little bit of a ways away. We're within 2 weeks, right? But you can still say, hey, this is going to be the foundation of this matchup. Penn State would benefit from this being a rock fight. You would want this to be a bad weather game. I'm not saying that, Penn State can only win in the rain, but that would help Penn State, because we know absolutely. Penn State's problems stem from lack of rhythm in the passing game and inconsistent pass protection up front. Nicholas Singleton is dealing with but he hasn't been bad. He's been good, not great, but he hasn't been bad. And Katron Allen has been great. And the offensive line, you watch the tape, they are pushing guys 5-10 yards up the field. So in run blocking and in run schemes, this team can run the ball. But Oregon, that's going to want to get into a track meet. They are going to want to go. They were going to want to start and fly right from the word go, right from that first whistle. And Penn State, I don't trust them to get into that scoring type of shootout with them. I do not, because even if, okay, at the end of the day, Penn State's passing attack very well might be improved across the board with where they are in week 12 as compared to game 12 as compared to game 4. Okay. But right now in this situation, Penn State's passing attack still has a lot to improve upon and work through, whereas Oregon hasn't shown any signs of, new starting quarterback, new receiving nucleus, new offensive line, new running backs, right? The only consistency and continuity is the offensive coordinator in Will Stein.
Yeah, he's good, by the way. He is not
He is
not long for Eugene. He'll be a head coach next year somewhere, I would strongly imagine.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it could be Wisconsin. It could be a lot of places, but that's another story for another day.
Yep.
I'm curious to see if they can run the ball. If what I brought up earlier is true, and Oregon just says, "Screw you guys, we're going to put the extra guy in the box."
I wouldn't blame them if they did that. They would have to. That's Penn State's MO, is they want to be a physical running team.
And I'm sure they're going to use creepers. They're going to use a 50 front. They're going to use all kinds of things because they are maybe the deepest team in the country at defensive line. So they can do all kinds of stuff up there with their edge guys, their big D tackles, etc. I'm curious to see what they do because they're going to hold back some stuff too. Like their opponents haven't been exactly stellar. No offense, the Beavs aren't the Beavs anymore. They stink. So
better than Penn State's competition.
That's a low hanging fruit kind of deal there. That's Penn State's schedule outside of Indiana's is about as bad as it gets in the Big Ten to start out the year.
Yeah,
but you got to make the most of it. It'll probably come down to 4 or 5 plays like most big games do. They're going to have to scheme it up. They're going to have to practice a lot better, figure out what's going on with the weirdness with some of the, Penn and these guys being open and not getting the ball on time. And then they're also just going to have to, again, they're going to have to make some 50-50 plays that we don't know which team's better at it because they're playing teams that just don't have the same athletes as what they have. I have no idea. Who's going to be Penn State's second corner? Who's their second best pure cover corner? The first one's obvious. He's going to be gone after this year.
Yeah, A.J. Harris, for those who don't know who Brian's referring to. He could be a first-round NFL draft pick, A.J. Harris.
Absolutely.
Best pure cover defensive back. I mean, if I can include safeties here, I would say Zachy Wheatley, but he will be tasked with Kenyon Sadiq, which that is one of the matchups I will be highlighting for the next,
what a great one.
10 to 14 days. Yeah, exactly. In addition to that, Elliott Washington and Adavian Collins, maybe Brian, you remember him, started at Mississippi State. Washington, very well because he played in the state of Florida before he went up to Penn State as a prospect. So they kind of do this 2A, 2B situation. I would say that Washington is the better corner ever in pass defense, but Adavian Collins, I would say, is the better run defender. So they kind of complement each other well on that other side of the football field.
Well, they're going to have to figure it out because Oregon friggin' fly. So
I would say Elliott Washington sees a lot more reps in this Oregon game than Collins.
So because Dante, the one thing he is not is a guy that wants to run. I asked him one time in high school, if it's 4th and goal and you're at the 2-yard line, you're running RPO, how good a runner are you? He goes, I give myself a 4 out of 10. I'm like, come on, man, you're better than that. But he doesn't like to run the ball. So you can commit a little more outside. He's in better shape and he can run a little better than he used to, but he's just not a natural athlete. So him and Drew are kind of similar. They're semi-mobile. But you've got to be able to take away some of those easy access throws, and he's a smart kid. You're going to have to take away some stuff to make him think. Maybe you can get him, even if it's just once, if you can rattle him once, then maybe you get that. It doesn't have to be a pick six. All that would be obviously nice if you're a Nittany Lions fan. Yeah. A short field where you don't have to and play from a lead. They need a lead. If one or the other is going to come back from a big deficit, Oregon's the better of the two to do it. Penn State's first quarter is more important than Oregon's first quarter. Is how I would look at that. So they need to figure that out, scheme up some plays. Maybe it's a flea flicker. Maybe it's a Statue of Liberty, something like that. That's how I see it.
Well, unfortunately for Penn State, they do have 2 full weeks to prepare. So if there's any saving grace in this situation, the offense didn't have the best 3 games to open up the season. You have 2 weeks to fully focus Oregon for 14 days instead of 7. All right. Now, the recruiting impact. So we get into a bit of a hypothetical, and this is just scratching the surface of this matchup. This is just the first of many conversations that we will have about Penn State and Oregon because of the implications of this matchup, not only for the season, but for potentially years to come because of the recruiting impact it will have. We're going to discuss that next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Gametime. College football is back, and we all couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing else like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. You know what I'm talking about. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You can pull up the Gametime app, and in just a couple of taps, you'll see those amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. And if you've never been to a venue before, let's say you've never been to Beaver Stadium, you get a point of view feature ahead of time, so you're not second guessing yourself on the tickets that you are buying. You know what your POV is going to look like before the game. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, download Gametime today. Brian, you'll be able to offer a lot of insight here to the recruiting battle. And just because Penn State continues to branch out nationwide, they have to. They have to go to regionals. Great. You want to dominate the state. Then you want to go to DC, Maryland, Virginia, branch into Ohio. Maybe you extend a little bit to try to go into Michigan, Wisconsin, which we have seen a little bit in the past, at least recent over the 5 years. But now they're getting prospects from California. It's more than just Florida. Oh, they'll go to Florida briefly. No, they'll go to California and get a prospect or two now. Try to go to Texas sometimes. Oregon's been doing that because they have to. We know, and I appreciate from past conversations that we have had, is that Oregon has to recruit nationally because the state of Oregon does not offer, at least for Penn State, Pennsylvania has a good amount of talent year in and year out. Oregon does not have that. So if Oregon were to win this game, that's obviously bad news. I know that we've seen, at least in recent memory, Emmanuel Iheanacho, for example, committing to Oregon as opposed to Penn State. A Brandon Finney who could see some playing time in this game for the Oregon Ducks. That was a prospect that Penn State really wanted. Oregon kind of comes in at the end of that recruitment, wins that battle. So instead of just a couple instances here and there, you would see more of that if Penn State does not win this game. There are going to be a lot of prospects in attendance for this one, Brian.
Yeah, I think Penn State will benefit recruiting-wise, win, lose, or draw. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a team that has an incredible stadium, an incredible fan base. It'll be a good atmosphere, and it's not like Penn State's going to lose 41-7. If they lose, it'll be like 3 points or something.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to benefit in it. Potentially, I don't know if any game will outdo the Tennessee versus Georgia or A&M versus Notre Dame games in terms of entertainment. It might be better play in some ways. Hopefully for defensive backs, it's better than what those guys showed. But I imagine that this will be one of the better games of the year. You should, especially for the 27 and 28 classes, Penn State should set itself up very, very nicely. You're not going to get a better because have they ever even played Oregon before in a game like in this state? Have they ever come to Beaver Stadium before?
I can't say that they have. So if I'm mistaken, forgive me, but the Big Ten Championship, the Rose Bowl, it's been in those types of postseason situations. Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. I mean, it's a one-off game, but it won't be anymore. But this is the first in a series. Hopefully they get to play. And you have a chance to hit it out of the park here with a lot of kids. So it's good for Oregon too. Don't get me wrong, but they have the strongest recruiting brand in college football now. Every kid wants to visit Oregon. It's not even close. They're the strongest brand. I don't know what it is. Oregon's good anyway. But Penn State, now you got kids coming in from all over the place, and you trying to beat Oregon for some of the kids they've been beating you for. Maybe you can flip some of them. There's so many different positive roads you can circle back to for Penn State here. I can't count them all. So Franklin and his staff do a great job of recruiting anyway. They should capitalize and do so pretty quickly.
A win here would be monumental for Penn State when we bring into respect of Penn State's always the second place team, the third place team. They're tier 2 in the Big Ten, or they're tier 2 in the nation. And that's kind of the stereotype that Penn State needs to break here, because the people, the naysayers about this Penn State team, and it's okay to be critical, but there's a portion of the college football fan base and spectator base that says Penn State is just 10-2. No matter what, doesn't matter. Find the 2 toughest games on their schedule. They will find a way to lose them. They will be 10-2. Maybe they back their way into the college football playoffs. So be it. But like I said, there's just a strong portion of people, and maybe that's it, because it's the brand perception. It's not, oh, well, who cares what an average fan thinks from a prospect's perspective? That's not it. But the prospects, to an extent, also view, they need to view Penn State outside of that tier 2 type of categorization, meaning that Penn State, if they beat Oregon, okay, now you might be just like Ohio State. Okay, we see Abdul Carter, we see Tyler Warren. Ohio State's winning national titles and producing prospects at that kind of rate, right? So that's what this does, is you break that stigma by winning this game. So I think Oregon, to an extent, is more of an important game than Ohio State is. Maybe that's because of the urgency, so to speak, and this game's right in front of you. But you're not chasing anything. You finally kind of, you get that chip off your shoulder. This team's 10-2. They're always tier 2. You prove it if you win against Oregon, and that has recruiting implications to me. Strong ones for Penn State.
Yeah, because you beat a team that you consistently compete for when it comes to, let's say, out of your top 10 kids that you sign as Penn State yearly, you lost 2 or 3 more that you wanted going to Oregon every year, because they come into Maryland, they come into Virginia, they go into New York, PA. It's weird where they recruit, considering their location. You beat them on the field, it's easier to beat them in recruiting. That is true. So this is a game with certain implications on the recruiting trail, for sure.
And that is where we will wrap it up. And again, many follow-up conversations to be had about Penn State versus Oregon. So this is only just the beginning. He is Brian Smith, the recruiting expert here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find his work over at The Portal, which talks about recruiting, and the Transfer Portal, which is opening up again because Virginia Tech and UCLA made some coaching changes. So I'm sure Brian will be busy with recruiting chatter, portal chatter, also Locked On Seminoles, among a variety of other teams that he covers by himself. My name is Zach Seiko, your host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, to get daily Penn State football, wrestling, basketball, hockey coverage, you got it all over here at Locked On Nittany Lions. Make sure you subscribe to our respective channels and wherever you get your podcasts to get that daily content. Brian, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out this show. But Brian, can't wait to have another conversation about Penn State versus Oregon, as this is one of the games of the season in all of college football.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.